All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick and my Terrence Ross Orlando Magic jersey as background for today. We're going to talk about the NFC Divisional Round matchups now that we know that it will be Rams at Eagles in addition to Commanders at Lions. We'll talk about the Super Bowl MVP market and then a quick check-in on the NBA Coach of the Year market. But let's start off with Commanders Lions, Drew. This one opened up all over the place. Some places open 10.5, some places open 7.5. Seems to be settling in around Detroit -9. Now the total is 55.5. Do you have any bet on this game?
Yes. So first of all, thankful that we have a divisional matchup that's not a rematch. It was looking likely with all the perturbations that we were going to end up with 4 rematches. This one is a fresh handicap, and that's fun. I expected that the market was going to be a little bit shyer on the Lions, considering the way that they've been treated since the defensive injuries really hit that team so hard. And I thought the market was going to be a little bit more bullish on the Commanders coming through again in dramatic fashion on the road against the favored Buccaneers. But no. This is a pretty aggressive number for the home favorite, and it's got me definitely second guessing my decision, my angle for this particular game. As I kind of think about the Lions, and you want to try to identify, well, who are they? Like, what makes them special? What got them to this 1 seed? To me, it pretty clearly and obviously, the biggest success has been the offensive construction, sequencing, and really just kind of masterful game planning that Ben Johnson has brought to the table for this team. He has a good, not great quarterback to work with. He has great weapons, and he has an elite offensive line. And I think that has really allowed him to come up with some really innovative game plans to take on specific opponents throughout the balance of the season and really do some serious damage. And what kind of stands out to me as I look back at sort of the arc of this Lions offense this year and what has made them so special is that none of his game plans are one note. None of them are like, well, we're going to try this, and if it works, great. And if it doesn't, then we'll figure something else out. All of his game plans have arc, and that is to just say that he is introducing things early in the game, that is testing the defense, pressing certain buttons, seeing if he does have an advantage that he thinks in certain places, which will lead to a part 2 that unfolds over the balance of either the second quarter or the second half, depending on game state. And that type of kind of philosophy is rare in the NFL. There's only a handful of coaches, I would say, who really kind of do that well. And what's special about it in terms of these types of matchups is if your part 1 works and your scripted portion is successful, then not only have you banked yourself some margin in the game, but then you already have things set up for success to continue to just press your advantages. And so when I kind of apply that to this matchup, will the scripted portion work? What buttons are they going to press? Where are they going to test this Commanders defense early on? I think it's largely going to be over the intermediate middle portion of the field where Goff thrives and where their weapons have clear and obvious advantages over the linebacking core and the safeties for the Commanders. And then, building off of that, what do? We try to take the top off with Jamison Williams. You try to get Gibbs in space on the perimeter. And really, I can't find anything in the matchups that say that there's going to be a pressure point here on the Lions offense, which means their team total of 33.5 is probably fair. Maybe it's a little bit low. 5 touchdowns. Is that possible? Yes. And I think the red zone offense, the fact that Dan Quinn has been so aggressive on 4th down, that is just icing on the cake for these guys. And so really kind of the Lions getting their number feels realistic, feels likely. And the cover and total will kind of come down to how successful will the Commanders' offense be. And that is where I am stumped here. because I have respect for the coaching for the Lions defense. Aaron Glenn has done an incredible job, particularly backfilling where needed, as he's had huge missing pieces this season. They're not coming into this game even close to full strength. Certainly, I would look at the fact that when they have been successful, it's been like against the Sam Darnolds of the world, guys that can't really move out of the pocket, guys that really can't create out of structure, and Jaden Daniels can do that. And so I have pause about really being super pro Lions here, just on the basis that the Commanders are going to fall on their faces, given that this is now their third game on the road, given that this is a little bit of an emotional letdown spot. I mean, it's tough to kind of put yourself in the situation of that Commanders team, but I imagine in DC this week, it certainly feels like they just won the Super Bowl, and now you got to get back up and take on an opponent where you're a 10-point dog. So this could have kind of whiffs of Giants going to Philly after beating the Vikings. This could have whiffs of Texans going to Baltimore after beating the Browns, where a young team that has exceeded expectations and won a playoff game really just kind of no-shows. But that is not necessarily a strong enough angle, I don't think, to get weird laying this many points with a Lions team that has a defense that I have questions about.
Yeah, I think the most interesting part of the game is just how broken is the Lions' pass defense, and whether when they come up against a quarterback who can extend plays and get out of the pocket and avoid getting swallowed up by the blitz or quick pressure the way that Darnold was, like how different does it look? Because the personnel isn't great for the Lions at corner. As much as people focus on how like Josh Allen completely eviscerated them, scoring 48 points in his sleep, and Jordan Love scored 31 in that Thursday night game. Like Brock Purdy also completely destroyed them through the air. It was incredibly efficient. It's just he had 2 brain-dead picks, which disrupted his overall stat line. So I wonder if Daniels just being able to buy time with Terry McLaurin, and apparently Diami Brown is really good now. So just that combo with Daniels's ability to create out of structure, whether that could really submarine Detroit. I think the issue for Washington is that this Lions run game is just about the best in the league, and the Commanders' running defense sucks. And Bucky Irving had success. I don't think there's going to be any way to stop them. What do you think of the Commanders' pass defense, which randomly since like week 4 has been an elite unit?
Yeah, I think that's smoke.
Probably right.
I don't think there's real there. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is something special that they're doing. But I guess I think it's smoke for this matchup. And I think and kind of why I say that is like there are pressure points that look pretty obvious. And a guy like Ben Johnson, I imagine, was watching the tape, watching Bobby Wagner and thinking, oh, baby, like we are going to put that guy in the hurt box in the first quarter of this game and really kind of, force them to go to, their plan B defensively, which could open things up for us all over the place. And so, I think the run defenses are notable for both sides here, which turns this into the type of game where it's going to come down to how efficient is your passing offense. I think the passing defense for the Commanders is going to get exposed pretty aggressively in this one. And there are kind of reasons to suspend a little bit of hope for the Lions here. We've certainly seen that, sometimes there's a little bit of rust on the quarterback. Goff is a timing guy. Goff is a rhythm guy. He's not, he doesn't have the world's most, powerful arm. He's a precision quarterback, and maybe it takes him a quarter to kind of get there. But ultimately, I think, I'm probably going to end up playing the points here, and I'm probably going to end up back in the Lions in game if the Commanders come out and get the first shot. So it doesn't feel great. It's a huge number. It doesn't feel great to go up against an elite quarterback who, by the way, has finished the game inside this number every game going back to week 1, where he didn't cover against the Buccaneers. This Commanders team plays teams tough. Dan Quinn has them well coached and just well prepared generally. His 4th down aggressiveness has been a breath of fresh air. 5 attempts against the Buccaneers was the difference in the game.
Yeah.
If he's conservative in those moments, they don't win. I think that kind of subplot of these aggressive coaches going head to head is going to be super fun. I think this is the game I'm the most excited about for the whole weekend, and part of the reason is just the Commanders produce entertaining football week in, week out, and so do the Lions.
Yeah, I'll take Bills Ravens over over Commander Lions.
That one's going to be painful for me. I'm going to be hurting in that whole game.
Yeah, I don't feel good about my Bills in that matchup, but I won't be betting Commanders Lions, but if I were to, I think I would be on the Commanders side. I just have never really understood the market's total infatuation with Detroit and treating them like to get to -9 here, you have to be treating Detroit as like a +7.5, +8 type of team, and they get the rest advantage. And obviously it's home field, but I don't know. I don't think Detroit's as good as Baltimore, but we'll see. I just think with that pass defense, there is a certain ceiling to how good this team can be, particularly when they don't have a top 5 guy at quarterback either. And I think they have the deficiency in the quarterback matchup. To your point about Ben Johnson and the play calling before we move to Rams Eagles, when I talk to people in the league about like offensive, defensive coordinators, particularly offensive coordinators, and what makes them good or not. And the kind of the consensus feedback I get a lot of the time is that bad offensive coordinators are just calling plays, drawing plays up, calling a play. Whereas the great offensive coordinators are like layering concepts and building a string of plays to set up another string of plays. And it certainly seems like Ben Johnson is in that. It's like Drew, the great Glenn McGrath, Australian fast bowler. He bowled 2 overs just to set up one particular delivery to start the 3rd over to get the guy to nick it to mid-off. But so Ben Johnson certainly one of the elites. All right, another one of the elites, Sean McVay, goes to Philadelphia. Yeah. The Eagles are 6-point favorites. The total is 43.5. We talk a lot about matchup aspects, particularly in the NBA, but with football, it's potentially even more pronounced, where you can stack team rating upon team rating, but the matchup elements have to matter at some point. And when I look at this game, Drew, I don't see a lot of good matchup elements for the Rams with the Eagles, with just how much bigger Philadelphia are and how Saquon had so much success on the ground against the Rams when they met on Sunday Night Football, and the Eagles absolutely blew them out in LA. So I don't see a lot of hope here for the Rams. But do you think there is some hope?
No, I think the Rams are drawing dead. I think this is the one matchup across the NFC that I don't think they had the answers for. They needed Green Bay to really step up and not fumble the opening kickoff and not throw 3 picks and actually perform to the level that their talent and catch the Eagles sleeping in week 1, and they didn't. Wildcard weekend, that is. The Rams succeed against teams that bring aggressive pressure. They struggle against teams that can generate consistent pressure with their front 4. The Eagles fall into the latter category. The Rams succeed against teams that are inclined to lean into man coverage, and they struggle against teams that deploy a too high safety concept, and the Eagles fall into the latter of that. The Rams are successful when they can generate defensive interior pressure at an aggressive clip, and when they are up against offensive lines that are weak in the interior. The Eagles are not that in any way, shape, or form. The Rams defense struggles when they have to cover multiple receiving threats who can create separation and win at the point of the catch. The Eagles fall into that category as well. So generally, offense and defense, the Rams are in deep trouble here. And combine that with the fact that you're traveling across the country on a short week, and you're playing in a game that, in a stadium that has just violent home field advantage in the playoffs. And I completely agree that this number should be 6. There are some places that are kind of offering 5.5 at this moment, and I disagree. I think that is probably the bet of the week, if I had to say, at the minute. And this is also a bit of, there's a buy low chance right now, I think, on Philadelphia's offense because of how bad Hurts looked in his return to action. But if you were like us and kind of pounding the table that there could be rust, then you kind of expected him to look the way he looked, I think. And I think an average game from Hurts combined with what they have in terms of just dynamic receiving skill could turn this thing into a little bit of a boat race. The matchup between these two teams in the regular season, I think, really underscored a lot of these points. And there's not much that even as a Rams guy, I think this is probably where the ride ends. And, I know that 6 points is a lot in a game where you have one quarterback who has won a Super Bowl and another who has got there and couldn't get it done. But the home team, I think, is the side here. And I think we're headed for Eagles, Lions, NFC Championship game, as everyone predicted, 4 months ago? I forget.
Yep.
Long time ago.
I tend to agree. I think the way this goes south for Philly would be that Jalen Hurts has a total implosion somehow, which is on the cards, but at the same time, like, his passing attempts prop is set at 25.5. So, like, he's not going to have that many chances to implode. So I don't think he's going to have to throw the ball very much. I think it's going to look somewhat like it did against the Packers, except the Eagles will have even more success on the ground. Now, Stafford should put up a better fight on the other end than Jordan Love did, but still, it feels a little bleak for Philadelphia, though hopefully the Rams can make it interesting. Okay, watch the biggest names in sports talk, including Mike Florio, Dan Patrick, Dan Lebitard, and Matthew Berry, as they cover the biggest moments on and off the field each weekday on the NBC Sports Now channel. It is now available on Peacock and free on most streaming platforms. Learn more at NBCSports.com/now. Okay, Super Bowl MVP market. Checking in on this again. Patrick Mahomes is 4-1. Jared Goff plus 550. Lamar Jackson plus 550. Josh Allen 6-1. Jalen Hurts 10-1. And then Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry. I think in a way the most interesting method to tackle this market at the moment, because 3 of the top 4 guys, like the Mahomes, Jackson, Allen, they just take up so much equity for their respective teams. Derrick Henry is the only guy on it, as we spoke about last week. I think he's the only guy on those 3 teams outside of the quarterbacks that has even like 5% of the team's equity. What do you think the chances are Jared Goff wins MVP if the Lions win the Super Bowl? Because he's not of the same caliber as those 3 guys. No offense, Jared. But still, when you factor in that the Super Bowl is going to be in a dome, he's very likely going to have to beat one of those guys, which probably means that he's going to have to play well and throw. So do you think that Goff is more closer to an 80-85% proposition, or more like a 55-60% proposition?
Ooh, that's a good question. I've always kind of I guess, though, the major change between last week when we talked about this and today is that I looked across the NFC landscape last week and I thought it was a little wide open. And all of a sudden now it's looking pretty chalky. And that's just the nature of the matchups and the state of these teams. And I think, I think the question about Goff is less about how do you divide the equity of Lions and more about what kind of price are you going to get in the Super Bowl if it's Lions versus any of the big 3. Because I go back to your point on the price for Lions Commanders. That's implying that the market really does give the Lions a very healthy rating. Now, presumably, if let's just pretend the Ravens get there, they will have beaten the Bills. They will have likely beaten the Chiefs, right? They have been a team that has been upgraded every single week for as long as I can remember. And they will continue to get upgraded to the absolute rare air. Is there a world where the Lions are 3-point dogs to the Ravens in the Super Bowl? I would say yes. Is there a world where they're 3-point dogs to the Bills? I would say yes. In fact, I'd say that the Bills-Lions regular season game might really pollute that market. There just might be a lot of high confidence Bills backers that really kind of makes that a runaway number for the Bills. And Chiefs are probably the one team where you could say there will be more of a even market, I would guess, in terms of enthusiasm, because presumably they will have beaten the Texans, which everyone expects is highly likely looking at the numbers right now. And then they will have survived whoever kind of limps out of that war between the Ravens and the Bills. And, I don't know that they're going to have, this air of invincibility that has existed at times in the playoffs with Mahomes, like I was kind of expecting was going to happen this year. It just hasn't ever really manifest. And so, yeah, the Lions might be in the +1.5 ballpark against the Chiefs on a neutral. And, at that point, the question, do we give them a shot? Absolutely. Like, they're live against the Chiefs, surely. I think they're live against the Bills, and they may be live against the Ravens, although that remains to be seen. And so the rollover price for Goff, I think, is going to be bigger because, just winning this week, winning against the Eagles, winning that game is going to get you into that Lions, 6-1 range. I'm guessing, just based on the fact that I think whoever comes through the AFC is going to have a huge tailwind for that at that Super Bowl market. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that it is it's so easy to get sucked into individual players and the narrative that they could achieve in a single game, but ultimately it's usually just the quarterback who wins Super Bowl MVP when they are a big name or they're expected to put up big numbers. I'd be much more optimistic about Jameer Gibbs. Well, that's not a very smart thing to say. It's pretty obvious, but I'd be much more optimistic about Jameer Gibbs if David Montgomery wasn't coming back this week, which I think is really going to dent his equity. But I mean, with Jared Goff, like right now the market is saying if you just divide his Super Bowl MVP price by the Lions Super Bowl price, he's like a 60% chance. That seems pretty low to me. That Jared Goff is only a 60% chance when he is going to have to beat, almost certainly going to have to beat Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, or Josh Allen. And I would think that he's going to have to play at a level that would, get him into that air. So, and the fact that Gibbs and Montgomery are going to dilute each other somewhat. And so I think your biggest concern is that Goff, look, anyone can have a massive game, but I would think the biggest concern with Goff is that all of his passing production would go specifically to Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then that would be the guy. And I don't think Amon-Ra is backable at price, but Goff being 60%, I think is a bit too low. And I think that is just, the market has just allocated too much equity to these other, superstar fantasy names like Gibbs and Amon-Ra. So I think Goff at +550 is the best bet. Does anyone else on the board leap out to you?
Well, I guess I think there's a key question here. What price are we going to get for Eagles Lions? Under 3?
Right? Yeah, 2.5, be under 2. 3. Yeah. I would have thought Lions minus 2 off the top of my head. These are pretty dead even teams, aren't they? Or at least the market seems to think so with the way that they're rating the Lions, and home field, is the difference, I would have thought.
Okay. Well, I gotta say I was pretty impressed with how kind of the lack of fatigue in Mr. Barkley in that Green Bay game, and the lack of enthusiasm right now across the universe for the quality of play we're seeing from Hurts. So I would say there's probably some scope there that should be more 50-50 between Hurts and Barkley, and you're getting a little bit better price on Barkley right now. But
here's a good question, Drew. Who would have won Super Bowl MVP for the Eagles last game? Because Hurts was 13 of 21 for 2 touchdowns. The 2 touchdown passes, one of them he had 7 seconds. The other was a bad pass that was behind Dallas Goedert, who turned into Marshawn Lynch for his 24-yard touchdown run. And Saquon was 25 for 119. Does that win? Did Zach Bourne had a pick?
Well, it's in the Super Bowl. I think he takes that final carry in for a touchdown.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, maybe not. Maybe he was that dedicated to win probability in his mind. But
I think he would have gone down.
You think he would have gone down? Okay, maybe.
Saquon does the right thing every time.
He does the right thing every time. Okay. I don't think so. I think it would have gone to some random. It would have gone to either gone to Barkley or it would have gone to a surprise like a Bond.
Yeah, I think it does go to Zach Bourne as a kind of credit to how well the defense played. I think it's probably split between Bourne and Barkley. just don't think you can give it to Jalen Hurts for 131 yards. And but it kind of does speak to the weirdness of the Eagles and the fact that like, if you just go back and look at all the Philadelphia games, like Saquon wins more MVPs than Hurts does game by game. And I get that's not perfect because they're not playing Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes every game, and Jalen Hurts is probably going to have to play better. But for them to actually win the Super Bowl against that caliber of opposition. But yeah, I would think that Barkley and Hurts are pretty neck and neck in terms of Eagles equity.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. And I guess the real weird wild card for you does just like what would Aiden Hutchinson have to do in a return from a broken leg to just steal the show from we want to tell this story standpoint?
Well, yeah, Aiden Hutchinson in theory will win any tiebreak because it will be such a huge story. But to get into the mix, to give himself a chance, I think he would need either 2 sacks or 1 sack, but it's a forced fumble or a touchdown return. And so, yeah, you do the math on like the outcomes that he would need to actually win. And then even if he does has 2 sacks, like that loses a lot of the time if Goff plays really well or if Gibbs runs in 2 touchdowns. So, but yeah, Aiden Hutchinson, it's a fun one. And yeah, we'll see exactly how much it looks like he's probably going to play at this point if he does get there. That's been the reporting, but like how much is he actually going to play? Like it feels improbable that he's going to play 100% of the snaps or anything. But yeah, certainly he would have the tiebreak. That would be a fun one. I think that's something that I would prefer to back live. And there are actually a few books that trade the Super Bowl MVP market live because there are very much worlds where like Aiden Hutchinson in real time is like, minus 500 fair to win the award, but Goff has decent numbers and the market is hanging even money or something. So that would probably be my approach.
I can very clearly see a world where there is a flat earth and the credit is split across Gibbs, Goff, the receiving core, and they haven't, they're kind of flirting with their team total in the Super Bowl, but the Lions defense has surprised everyone and put Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson in a box, right? And Hutchinson with 3 sacks in that world, I think, steals it.
Yeah, everyone will want to vote for him. And a lot of these awards, it is finding out to an extent who everyone does want to vote for. Though it may not have helped Josh Allen in the MVP race, which is a surprise to me, but we'll see what happens on February 6th. All right, it's Derby Day in North London. Second place Arsenal takes on Tottenham in the biggest Premier League match of the week. Watch live Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Peacock.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, let's close out with NBA Coach of the Year. This is the market with the shortest favorite now, with Kenny Atkinson going past Victor Wembanyama's Defensive Player of the Year price. Atkinson is now minus 400. Jamal Mosley, second favorite, very on a merit basis. I think that is absolutely correct. It's improbable to me that the Magic have won as many games as they have. He's 12-1. Ime Udoka 12-1. Taylor Jenkins 20-1. Ty Lue 25-1. Mark Daigneault 35-1, and JB Bickerstaff 40-1. I'll read one more name because it's fun. Doug Christie is 50-1. So, Drew, I think the way that this market should be framed is how does it go south for Atkinson? Because on current trajectory, I think he should just walk it in, but Cavs are minus 300 to get the 1 seed. So, just going off market price is a 25% chance that'll blow up and they collapse to the 2 seed. Their median win total right now by market is projected at about 63 wins, which is pretty good. And certainly at 63 wins, I think Atkinson is a shoo-in. But what do you think? How much do the Cavs need to fall off for Atkinson to open the door to the rest of the field?
There needs to, the 1 seed, I think, clinches it for him. Yeah. So that at a minimum, he has to drop to the 2. I don't know that there's a world where he scuffles out of the All-Star break, loses 4, 5, 6 games in March, and people cool on him, and they still get the 1 seed and don't vote for him. I do think there is definitely a world where Cleveland does a little bit of a reset. They are living right now with regular season success that is born out of a lot of shooting luck. We are not that far removed from some of these players having some bad shooting runs, and a bad shooting run for the Cavs combined with a little bit of shooting luck against them will change the market's vision and perception of this team pretty aggressively, as you would attest to sort of the anchoring of preseason rating for the Cavs. We just talked about the Cavs, and I still think they're much more viable than I realized to start the season. It's going to take more than just a bit of scuffling to shake my confidence, but it doesn't take that much for people to really sour on coaches, as we know time and time again, where a little bit of a cool stretch, and not only are people not interested in your support, they've written you off. This is not allowed. You're not allowed to ever get cold. So I think you would have to be something to the tune of 6 or 7 losses in the month of March, combined with Boston or New York racing to steal the 1 seed from their grasp. Now, in that world, that's maybe a more fun conversation, and I have some thoughts, but I'm just curious if you have a candidate you want to throw out first.
I agree with everything that you said on Atkinson in terms of the potential challenges to Atkinson. I think that Udoka's path is a little bit, if they're the 2 seed, I just worry about what Udoka's actual ceiling is in terms of toppling, even like a 35th percentile Atkinson outcome. So in terms of the guys who have real ceiling, I think that, and it kind of comes back to the thing of the Aiden Hutchinson thing of who do people want to vote for? If Ty Lue was able to get a 2 seed, which is improbable, but within the realm of possibility, the Rockets could fall back to the pack. Right now, the Clippers are 3 back of the 3 seed, 5 back of the 2 seed. So it's a bit of an ask, but again, not impossible. So Ty Lue is somewhat interesting to me at 25-1. I'm not really interested in Jenkins at 20-1. I don't really see what his path is. Mosley, I probably agree with him being the second most likely to win, just because the Magic can get healthy and they have a real path to the 3 seed, and having this injury narrative, which is a very easy thing to point to, and and a meritorious thing to point to in terms of the coaching job that he's done. But that's, again, I just worry about the absolute ceiling, when I think it's extremely improbable they're going to get a top 2 seed. And this team, they did win they won 48, 49 games last year. So again, the injury stuff has to do some heavy lifting, and Atkinson needs to fall off. In terms of the real long shots, you're talking about things like Tibbs is too far back in the 1 seed to actually get the 1 seed, but he would have been fun at 200-1 if they were 5 back instead of 8.5. And then the other one to me is what if Mark Daigneault just wins 70 games? Can he not go back to back?
Yeah, we had this conversation, I feel in October, when it looked like the Thunder could very clearly get to 70, and they've had some stretches where it hasn't hasn't gone perfectly well for them, but that is a very, very good team in a relatively weak conference. So 70 is real. Daigneault should be live. I would expect that he's going to be on a lot of ballots. And I guess maybe really that's the answer of how Kenny Atkinson loses this, if there's not consensus.
Yeah, and look, it's a they have peaked now. Like they're not gonna.
Yeah.
What are they right now? Their record is
33
33-5.
Yeah.
So they're not going to go 33-5 over their next, 38 games, presumably. So they will tail off to some extent. Now, he's built a lot of cushion, and that team, the way it's constructed, just the roster is such that they are specifically insulated against the type of collapse that would cost him this award, right? Because if Donovan Mitchell goes down for 4 weeks, which would be a catastrophe for another team if they lost their best, player, all NBA caliber player. If Donovan Mitchell goes down for 4 weeks, like the Cavs are still pretty good. Like it's still Garland and Mobley and Allen and a lot of competent depth. So they would get by. So it's difficult to see how they really collapse. I think the way it would go south is if they just, the shooting stuff regresses a little bit and the shine comes off. And instead of winning 63 games, they win like 58 or 59. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, you won 59 games with, this loaded team, because by then they will have been so good for so long that everyone will see them as completely loaded and not a team that, people thought were going to finish the same range as the Magic and the Pacers. And you won 58, 59 games, and Ty Lue won 51 with a team that was expected to, be last in its division and be fighting for the play-in and had a win total of like 37.5 or whatever. Yeah. So that is the kind of, I think Atkinson needs to be like at least 4 or 5 wins below his median projection to really open the door to someone like Ty Lue or like Dagenau. Dagenau gets 70 wins. Like that's pretty ridiculous as an encore for last season.
It is. And in that world that you just constructed, that's a 12-win gap. 12-win gap isn't enough to shake people to their senses.
It's the hard part is, their win total is 64.5. So, and I get that, like 64.5 to 70 is a pretty big gap when, you've already lost 6 games. So it's not like you have that many wins. So it's like, I can just win an extra 5 games. Like, no, those extra 5 games, that's massive in terms of a decrease in probability, just the likelihood of it occurring. So it's difficult, but it's not inconceivable. This team is so loaded that they could get to 38-6. And it is the type of thing too, where, if they're 64-12, like that's something where you really probably push, I think, to get to 70. And so those kind of factors kick in. But Dagenau is probably the one of most interest to me, just because he has the scope to do something historic. But Atkinson is, I think, a pretty safe short favorite for the time being.
They won 50. Thunder won 57 last year. If you're talking about 13-win improvement when you've lost your second best player for the balance of the season, like that's a story worth telling. Their preseason win total 57.5, exceeding that by 12.5 wins. That would be a story. I guess the other kind of fun thing to note about the Cavaliers in this conversation, they've played 38 games. They've had 38 games available for Jared Allen, 37 available for Evan Mobley. They have had 37 for Garland, 36 for Mobley, 36 for Mitchell. They have been on the absolute cutting edge of injury luck to this point in the season, and that is what you need to be able to get to 33-5. And it does shock me that Mosley is not a little bit closer to the top here, just because like you have lost your 2 best players for huge portions of this season, and you found a way to win in spite of that. And again, like if I had a vote, like, to me, the Cavs story is largely Evan Mobley's emergence to elite, and he gets my MIP vote. And the story as far as coaching, who I cannot believe has gotten their team into the position they are today and could presumably, race to a 4 seed, is Mosley and the Magic. Like I cannot, we're expecting Franz Wagner back in February. They still have guys missing day in, day out and fight and win in games where they're huge dogs. Like this Magic team, to me at least, has exceeded expectations more than any other. And I think there's a door where there's a split vote between people who want to write that story, people who want to talk about the Thunder achieving history, and people who have just kind of already made up their mind at the All-Star break that it should go to Atkinson.
Yeah. I think my ballot would be Atkinson, Mosley, and Lou in some order as the top three. But I think that, and look, I think Atkinson deserves credit for unlocking Evan Mobley and empowering him to, take the offensive strides that he has in terms of a changed shot profile and running more of the offense through him. Like on offense, just in terms of like touches per game, like Mobley touches the ball as much as Donovan Mitchell in this offense now. Like, and last year that was not the case whatsoever. So Atkinson deserves credit for that. But
I got one fun question to end this. If you had the NFL voters voting on this, wouldn't JB Bickerstaff be like the
Brian Daboll, 9-7-1.
The Brian Daboll, right?
Type of winner. Yeah. Doug Christie and Quinn Snyder might be in the mix. But no, in the NFL voting world, Bickerstaff is your favorite because he'd scrape in as a wild card, but have the going from 14 wins to 39 or whatever. NFL world. It is weird how it differs so much. I don't really understand why. It's still human beings voting for the award. It's just, it's like, it's a massive issue for Jamal Mosley winning the award that he's 23-18. Whereas in the NFL, if like his equivalent story, like he's basically Kevin Stefanski's coach of the year case last year.
Yeah.
And Stefanski went like 11-6 and was a wild card. And still got it done. And Mosley, if he keeps on the same win pace, well, he's got, Paolo and France coming back, so he'll have to lift up to have a chance. But 23-18 is almost like a death sentence in this market because it's just like, only goes to coaches who win like 55 plus games unless you're Tom Thibodeau turning Julius Randle into an all-NBA player. Or randomly, like, didn't Doc Rivers won at 41-41 like 25 years ago or something on the Magic? Before my time, and I was following this one. Anyway, we are done for today. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also, a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew, we'll see you soon.